Welcome back to Melanin Minds, empowering Black women creatives, where we focus on Black women in the comics and manga space. Today, we have a really special guest on that I'm really excited for because I'm literally a huge fan of everything she posts. Um, literally, the entire focus of this person's platform is to highlight specifically Black women in comics and other stuff and talk about representation and how it should be done, why it's not being done correctly, how we can fix it, improve it. And she teaches us so much in all of her posts and videos because I mean she also went to school for this. So I really look up to her. I'm very excited that she's here. The Mighty Z.
Hey, everyone.
So I don't know if you wanted me to call you anything else or if Mighty Z is fine.
You can do just Z. It's fine either way.
Or Z, okay. So thank you for being here. I'm excited. Like I said, I watch all your stuff. Um, and so I've actually been learning some things about you on the way. But I know one thing I haven't learned, which is the first thing I want to ask you about, which is your journey as a Black woman creative and in this space, and also how it's impacted your work. Like, how did you get into this? Like, I know you went to school, like, in literally like something very related, but like, how did we get here?
Well, first, like as a kid, I was like always into different kind of like nerd-based media, like comics, anime, all that good stuff. So I think when I started getting more into like my actual degree, because like I'm a historian and I specifically focus on Black history. That's where I kind of merged my two interests together. And I really got interested into thinking about, not only like Black representation in media overall, but how this kind of works when we get into, more things like sci-fi, fantasy. Where do we kind of get into like those topics of race and gender here? And you kind of delve into those spaces and you see, that there's a particular group that's not really welcome. And that's what I really wanted to get into, especially when I got online, because I feel like online, that's where it gets a little tougher for specific people. And I really also wanted to create a space where, especially Black women can feel comfortable to speak about, what they're personally feeling about a specific show or anything like that without being worried about somebody jumping them in the comments, stuff like that. So yeah, it's been kind of a mixture of things for me personally. But I think what was really my core idea here was just having like a space where Black women can voice their own kind of grievances or anything they're excited about without having to be harassed.
Yeah. And I thank you for doing that because not only do I enjoy your space, it feels like a safe space.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of the reason why I decided to finally do this, because I thought about it like years ago when we first really started doing comics, and I kind of just didn't do it. I was like, eh. So trying to break that and actually do it. And I think also seeing you doing that helped to kind of inspire me to be like, okay, we can do this. All right, we're not alone in this. Other people are trying to do the same thing. And it's definitely important. And so, because of that, I want to know how you see comics as a tool for activism and social change.
Mhm. Well, historically, comics have always been like that kind of media to show like all the social things that are going on. Like we had comics pretty much being produced at the height of like World War II.
Mm.
Even like, those little small little political comics you see, those have been dated back to like the 1700s even. I feel like art especially has always been a way of conveying our politics, even just talking about the way things are going in society is politics. Almost everything can be considered politics. Uh, so right now, I also feel like comics, especially, are kind of like that special tool of being able to show ourselves as a very underrepresented group. Because this is kind of a way that we're able to feel more represented in things that we enjoy, but then also kind of spread messages because comics are both visual and literary mediums.
Hmm.
So we can actually begin to voice our own opinions on the way that we're treated in media and the way that we're treated in society through this kind of form of entertainment. Because sometimes it could even be like very explicit or it could be very subtle, but either way you're getting a message across, and I think that's really cool that a lot more black comic writers now have the time to do that because before uh you really didn't see any of that. Like, then there was so much restriction on what you could and couldn't talk about in comics, especially like with the big two companies like DC and Marvel. Like, you had stuff like the Comics Code Authority,
Right.
where you couldn't even show certain people, you couldn't talk about certain subjects. But now we kind of are getting into the space where we can. But even when we got into that space of where you could do these things, you saw that certain people, like writers and artists, editors, certain people were being allowed in, but certain people were not. So,
Hmm.
even if you had something like a white writer writing a black character, you would start to feel like something was kind of off because they don't really have that lived experience either. They don't
Hmm.
have like that understanding or anything like that. So in a way, it is actually very political also for black writers to also be able to write black characters and put that extra bit of life into it. Even having a black artist draw the black characters, I feel like that's also political in and of itself.
Right. The difference having a black artist draw Nubia Maid was so immense. It was crazy. Like from the hair to the features and everything. And
Mhm.
I like that you brought the Comics Code Authority because it reminds me of the post that you made recently about coding,
Yeah.
um, ethnic coding and stuff, about how they would make characters that were aliens or different colors, and there would be racial coding in them because they couldn't put specifically like black people in stuff. So instead, there were blue people who were later, said be like, this is the African American alien species and stuff like that. But then even still, they still do stuff like that, whether it
Mhm.
be a humanoid character with a different skin color, whether it be an animal character, especially animal characters.
Yeah, and I think it's also like especially too because they do feel that like white audiences are more able to sympathize with non-human things than they are to be able to sympathize with actual human characters who don't look like them. And that's just another like complexity within itself.
Right. It,
It's like that joke that we say about like how like white people love animals more than they care about people.
yeah.
I think it's kind of like that where it's like, they can see like a group of aliens facing genocide and discrimination and be like, hey, that's wrong. But then the
Right.
second you like replace aliens with black people, and then it's like all hell breaks loose.
Oh gosh. Or women. Just oh gosh.
Yeah, even like you think about like the X-Men, we see the X-Men, you got like Cyclops,
Mhm.
Rogue, all of them. I mean, they're like, okay, yeah, I can understand that. But then you actually show like actual like Black Lives Matter protests and things like that, and it's like, actually, no, I disagree.
Right, right. And always we'll always talk about the X-Men because it's always so relevant, and the X-Men is my favorite. It's like I think too with fiction, they know it's not going to affect their
Hmm.
life specifically and their way of life, and
Yeah.
so it doesn't, since it's not going to affect them on a personal level. Suddenly their eyes are opened to
Yep.
to all the ways that it's wrong. But once it begins to affect them and possibly change their way of life to where they're not the center, now it's a problem.
Yep.
Now
They're
they're
able
they think they're
to.
the expert.
Yeah, they like pretty much separate the reality and the fantasy. Because if I make it like where it's a bunch of fictional people, then I can say,
Mhm.
oh, well, this is a fictional issue.
Right.
And that's where things kind of get weird. Even when I remember I talked about fantasy racism a while ago, and I'm like,
Mm,
is no one gonna question why in all these like fantasy settings there's always like, you know, this one race that's like a slave to everybody else, and that nobody does anything about this? Or like how, you know, orcs are like the
mhm,
savages and they're always very tribal. They're always made to look very, you know, different. Like even when you think about Lord of the Rings, a lot of the
right.
orcs in those films are actually played by Maori actors,
Right.
you know, the
Yeah.
indigenous peoples of New Zealand. And it's like, wonder what that's about.
Yeah. As someone who was only recently like in well, it's about a year and a half now, started playing D&D, learning the
Mhm.
complexities of the world that D&D takes place in has definitely been interesting as well.
Yeah, because
So,
I'm like, what do you mean by that? Like, because even with Dungeons and Dragons, they've actually had to change a lot of the names and stuff that they've had for like
mhm.
certain characters because they're like, oh wait, that's kind of race.
Yeah, yeah. I read about that, I think, like, last year, I was like, "Oh, oh." I was like, "Well, I'm glad y'all are changing things. Let's hope we continue with the progress." But,
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's like, and then that's another thing too. Like when you add in these non-human characters, they're fine with that. But then, like you know, dragons, elves, pixies, orcs, goblins, all that stuff. But then, like the second they see like a black person, all of a sudden, like the fantasy is just like destroyed.
ah, ah.
Like they're like, actually, this is unrealistic. But I'm like, there's literally dragons here.
You know, I think I said it to someone else. It was like black. Oh, when Carla and I were talking, we were talking about how black people are not a part of their fantasy because they want a world where we don't exist. We
Oh,
brought
like
up
that one
about
anime tweet.
mm,
Oh, did you see the tweet?
which one?
Okay, so this guy was like, I don't like watching anime that has black characters because it ruins the fantasy for me. Because I don't
I
like
missed
see
that one. I stay away from. I love anime, but I tend to stay away from anime Twitter.
anime Twitter is pretty bad. I don't blame you.
Yeah, I can't. Every time I go there, it's something, and then you mix anime Twitter with the voice acting community, and it erupts into so much toxicity. I really
No,
just check for stuff and leave.
I'll actually never forget this. The one time that I ever got some backlash, well, some people from anime Twitter found my Instagram.
Oh my!
And there was this one post I did about this horrible anime that they just love so much, and that was actually like one of the first and only posts I've ever had where it just permanently was stricken down. Like even if I tried to appeal it, I couldn't get it back because they would just keep false flagging it every time it was back up.
Was it Goblin Slayer?
Not Goblin Slayer. This one is super obscure, but if I mentioned it, you might know about it. It's an anime called Terra for Mars.
Mm, yeah, I haven't
Now,
seen it.
have you ever seen that weird Obunga meme where it's like Obama, but it looks like distorted?
Yeah, I have no idea where it came
Okay,
from.
that's
Scrap
where that
that.
meme comes from. That's where it comes from. Terra for Mars. In the show Terra for Mars, these like people are from Earth. They have to colonize Mars, but when they get to Mars, they discover like these roach-like aliens. And if you saw those aliens, they're literally black men. They're just tall, they're super tall, very muscular, they're black, they look like roaches, and they have these weird long distorted faces. And they don't even try to hide the fact that these characters are supposed to be black because we see like images of them in like uh those types of like lowrider cars, like wearing chains. Some of them wear chains, some of them have guns and stuff. um and there's like very graphic imagery anytime they kill a white woman. It's very like, um, and there's only like one human black female character in it, and she's like over sexualized. They made it to where she was like a former prostitute, and she's very greedy, and eventually she ends up like being taken by these aliens, and like she becomes like the queen alien here. It's very weird, but like the show was extremely racist, and even in the promotions for the show, it's just a bunch of Japanese people in blackface. One of them, like the creator of it, was literally holding like a giant KFC chicken, Like, so it's not, they're not even trying to hide that it's racist, but I made a post calling out this anime, and the next thing you know, I had thousands of people bombarding me going like, actually you're wrong, they're not racist, it's based off of it's one of the Neolithic species. I think it's called Homo Homo erectus. But the thing is, Homo erectus is still an African species.
Yeah.
Like, so basically, you had a bunch of people, white people, trying to gaslight me and tell me that it's not racist, but they know for a fact that it's racist. And then they would just mass report the thing and all that goes. So, like, this is why I don't really bother with any of them, because they choose to be this way, and they know what they're doing.
They very much do. Man, you didn't even get half that much backlash on the ladybug post. Like, geez.
Yeah, no, that was the one I was
pretty
expecting
well.
something, but they were like, no, that's the thing. I have just found that anytime I talk about any form of media, I don't get as anywhere near as much backlash as I do when it comes to anime. Anime, anytime I try to touch on it, that is when I get a lot of blowback. With comics and everything else, not very much. But with anime, absolutely not. I would rather deal with the most alt-right comic group on this face of the earth before I ever deal with a weeb ever again.
Yeah, no, I definitely actually agree with that. They wild.
Like, they have like they don't have like any kind of sense. And I think that's like the only thing I can say. And they feel very empowered by the anonymity of the internet.
Usually just with an anime PFP of their
Hmm.
favorite character who would absolutely hate what they're doing at that.
Yeah, like, it's kind of funny because a lot of them are like usually the ones that have like Deku or Goku as their profile pic, and I'm like, yo,
Right.
what anime did we watch?
We did not watch the same anime, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Another thing you brought up earlier too was about Black people writing. Like, you can tell when a white person is writing Black people versus a Black
Mhm.
person because of the experiences. And that's another thing Carl and I brought up briefly. The
Yeah.
same thing with Black with women. It's like you can a lot of the time tell
Every
when
time.
when a woman versus a man writes a man because the lived experiences. It's because people are always like, well, why can Black people write white people, or why can women write men? And it's like, because the trickle down is like, the more oppressed that group of people, the less the oppressor understands exactly
Hmm.
what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so
Yeah.
that's why, in case anyone was wondering, because I don't think I've ever answered the question.
Mm. Yeah,
But
because I'm like, you're trying to write a group of people, but you don't know anything about them. You've never even interacted with some of these people in all these cases. And you never asked their opinion on anything. You didn't even ask them like how they felt about the comic before you published it. So really, all they have to go off of is stereotypes and what they think that they know. Because like, even
any
you
interaction
can
with
really
that,
tell, like, you can really tell when they use media as an influence for how they write. That's what another thing why I say media is very important, because media shapes the way people think about people before they even meet them. Um,
mhm,
like how, like, for a long time, a lot of Black women in like DC animated stuff would have like the same Halle Berry haircut, and it's because that was like one of the only Black women they could name at the time.
as much as I love Vixen, Jesus Christ.
I'm like, come on now. Yeah, because
That
my
is
thing is, a lot of people don't even know that that wasn't even like her original thing. Like, originally, like, if you see some of her first appearances, she had like long burgundy hair,
right, right.
and
But
then like
they
Halle
said, "Oh,"
Berry.
and they said, "Oh, you know who's popular? Halle Berry. Let's change her hair." You know, the funny thing is, I think this actually a lot of what we're talking about now actually also touches on the question of why representation is important in comics, particularly for Black women, which is the media seeing us. Like you said, if
Mhm.
everybody's biggest exposure to Black women was Halle Berry, everyone's thinking, all right, Halle Berry. Every time I see a
Mhm.
Black woman, she's going to have short, spiky hair. Depending on their introduction to her, she's going to be in all black and leather. It's
Yeah.
a lot of her stuff back then, huh?
And then there's like another one that I talk about a lot, and this is actually one where some people really do get upset with me. But I have to let them know like this isn't I mean I'm excluding people, but it just means like it's like this is a constant thing. And that's like whenever I see like the designs or the treatment of a black woman, sometimes like I'll notice they're like overly butch.
Yes, I remember you bringing that up several times
They're
over the
all
last few months.
because it's like always like that. Because I'm like, okay, I understand, like we can have that, but
Mhm.
why is it like everybody? Like, where's the like? That's the thing. They don't understand that black women are diverse
Mhm.
in the way that like we look, in the way that we act, what we have an interest in. Like, I was talking about this before. Like, not every black woman is athletic. Not every
Right,
black woman is like this or that. Like, where are the black goth girls? Where are the black,
right.
what is it,
Oh,
coquette, all
so
that stuff?
but yeah, it's
like,
like either we're super hypersexualized or we're
hmm
super butch. There's no in between for a lot of these people. I think
yeah,
another thing we talked about with that was with the art style slash coloring. We
hmm
talked about like how they were. It always seems like we're drawing these really weird tones
hmm
and color tones and
Oh yeah,
stuff.
I love bringing up the freaking high school chocolate milk grayish brown color.
That yeah,
Yeah, like where it's like the skin has no warmth. I've noticed anytime I post I see a picture of like a black character, I'll just have to increase the saturation for the picture to actually look nice because you'll notice like the skin always just looks bleached. It looks like someone tried to add pink undertones to brown skin because that's the thing. They start the base like they would a white character, but then they just try to put some brown on it, but it's like that's not how that works.
right.
They don't it's because I'm like sometimes it's more than just the features and the hair. Sometimes it's about like knowing how our skin works. Like even like when you're thinking about shows, a lot of shows still suck at lighting black characters' skin. It was actually the actress Anna Diop, the one who played Starfire and Titans.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
actually tried to file a complaint. I think she mentioned a complaint that she had with the direction of the show, where it's like the lighting did not work for her skin because she's a darker skinned woman, and
Mhm.
like the execs were just like, well, we actually care more about the other members of the cast than you, so suck it up.
Right. Which is only proving their point that she was just a diversity hire
Mhm.
in a sense of them trying to force it. But it's just like, but it would have been so great if they actually took the time to care about her character and her as the character. Like
Yeah,
they could have been wonderful,
yeah,
but
and that's the
they
thing. We're always put
everybody
in
else.
between a rock and a hard place because it's like you're dealing with these forced diversity, woke, da 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 people, but then you're also dealing with this kind of performative support from the other side as well. Where that's
Yeah.
like, yeah, we love to have more black characters, but like not after February, stuff like that. Because I'm
Right.
like, why do we always have to wait till February to see like the black characters for these major companies that they have thousands of these black characters? Why do we have to wait till February for them to actually get not even like a real run, but like a mini series?
Right. It's like, oh, okay, February, black characters, February's over, we're done with them. Like,
Mhm.
and it's so aggravating because again, I want to see Vixen, which is why I was so excited when I saw your video about that Vixen possibly being in the new
Yeah.
DCEU. But I'm like, are they going to do her justice? And I'm concerned because
Okay.
Vixen is my favorite DC character, and I'm just hoping that they do
Yeah,
her justice.
and that's the thing. She's like a constantly disrespected character. Because if you think about like the history of her, like she appears, and we see like this gorgeous woman. She's a model. Uh, she's a
Fashion
princess.
designer, great.
Uh, like she had like, and that was like kind of. I thought her design was cool because like burgundy isn't really a very well used color that I see a lot. I like the burgundy here. Um, but we also see her first established with Superman as
Mhm.
a character. And that's where we actually see one of her earliest feats is that she's able to break through Superman's skin, and which Superman himself says that's something that nobody else was able to do before.
Right.
And so we're like,
That's all.
okay. And so we're like, okay, so maybe this will go somewhere. But then, like, she's supposed to have her own comic back then, and then it just gone. It just
Right.
doesn't happen. So then this character gets pretty much put on the back burner, and then while this is happening, she just gets constantly nerfed. Because I'm like, okay, this character, she's incredibly strong. She can go toe to toe with Superman. We have
Powerful.
multiple cases where she can go toe to toe with Superman. She has
Yeah.
magical capabilities. She can siphon powers from pretty much any living creature.
Right.
But then it's like, actually, we don't do anything with that. In fact, even though she is a magical being, she's not even included in Justice League Dark. She's barely even included in the Justice League, despite being the first Black female member of the Justice League.
Right.
And then
We're
even when you get to that show, oh,
Because we're lucky if we get John, honestly, at this point.
yeah, because that's the thing. John is a hard one because it's like they have to, you know, like if we're going in order, then they're going to do Hal Jordan first.
Mm-hmm.
But then that kind of makes it feel like John becomes like, and mind you, John is very much a character in his own right. He has his own path of story. I love his character. But people will see it as like, oh, just a tack on, you know.
Right.
But Vixen is so different because it's like, you know, people always say they want like a solo character, a character with their own lore, an independent character. But like Vixen's right here.
Right here.
And they don't do anything
literally
with
has that.
But I'm like, she has like lore. She has literal lore.
She has lore. She has a whole backstory. Like at best, they'll pair her with like Animal Man sometimes because like he helped train her. But like she's not like his sidekick or his like legacy character replacement. She is her own character.
In fact,
That's
like I get in trouble. Right? I get in trouble for this, but I actually say you could just remove Animal Man and put Vixen in there because I really don't think Animal Man has the iconic level of Vixen. I don't think he does. I mean, I understand.
They don't care about Animal Man. The only reason they'd be mad about that is because you removed Animal Man and he's a white man. But most of them don't even care about Animal Man.
They're not making any noise for Animal Man. When's the last time you even seen someone mention Animal Man? They're not. But it's just the fact that he's a white man. But I'm like, Vixen has her own lore. She has incredible lore that we can explore a lot more of. And really, her and Animal Man have very similar stories when it comes to the connection to the red and the DC cosmology all together. But like, really, we don't really need him for that.
We don't.
In fact, he's a retired hero. You could like have like a shout out to him. You could do like a shout out to him as like a retired hero with his family because you know he had to like go be with his family. We could do that, but I just don't think he needs to be central because I feel like he's kind of I feel like with a character like that, they would put him so front and center that it would make Vixen feel like a sidekick, you know?
Right.
Because they're kind of doing that right now, even with Beast Boy, because Beast Boy is getting his own like little series going on with involving the connection to the red. But I'm like, Vixen has been here how long? But Beast Boy gets pushed just because of that, you know. Like I said, media is a powerful thing. People know and care about the Teen Titans now because of the cartoon that happened in 2003. So Beast Boy is getting all this push just because of the success of that show.
Right, and then that they did that whole storyline recently where Garth turned like evil and whatever, and they thought they killed him and everything. And then Amanda Waller, I don't know what she's doing, but she's in the background pulling.
See, that's another thing that I bring up, and people also get mad at me for. I feel like Amanda Waller is quite literally one of the only Black women that DC highlights, and that is for a reason. Because you know, think about it. Amanda Waller, she is an you know, she's a woman of a particular age. She fits that specific category of like, you know, we don't have to like write her in the way that we write the other women. In fact, even like, you know, her mindset and her complexity, they don't even handle that with care altogether because usually she's supposed to be, I would say she is quite literally the embodiment of moral grayness.
Yeah.
She is an incredibly complex character, but then you have it to where a lot of writers, they just straight up write her as like this horrible, evil person. And they're doing it right now. And it's like, they don't understand her as a character. And I understand why, because they are making her like that like that sapphire kind of mammy crossbreed type
Yeah.
of archetype, and that's what they really see her as. And they are
Mhm.
able to push her more because that's the idea of Black women that they understand.
Yeah.
They understand that more. They don't understand like when we ask them for like, oh well, where are like our Black female fashionistas? Why don't we have
Right.
any Black female singers like y'all do with Black Canary and all of them? Why don't
Right.
we have, those fun teen girl ones that you get with like characters like Wonder Girl and
Girl.
Supergirl? Like we don't see any of that. And that's because they don't see Black women that way. They don't think Black
No.
women even do any of this stuff. But I'm like,
No.
what world are you living in?
They're very narrow box in the corner where we don't exist.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like, and that's another thing. People don't ever think about the designs. A design creates a character. A character's design can make them or break them. And I've noticed artists, you can really tell which characters they care about based on the level of detail placed into the design.
Right.
And there's never any amount of love or care put into the designs of like Black female heroes
Yeah.
at all. Like, what is it? You always end up seeing like really bad stuff. Like, have you ever seen like those bodysuits, where it's like the entire body is covered, including the hair? They're like in a whole suit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the there's like a new series about like the lost sidekicks of the Justice Society. And it's like, you've seen Stargirl, right?
Yeah. Well, the show.
Okay, like
Or
either
just read
comics or
Star.
like, but you know her design.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I read Star. I didn't watch the show, but I know Stargirl.
Yeah, so in that, we got Stargirl and her outfit and everything, and then like there's the one Black girl on the team, and her design is literally just a hazmat suit with like a cherry sticker on it. It's a gray hazmat suit with a cherry sticker on it.
I think this is why I kind of stopped keeping up with some of the stuff. That and the
Yeah,
fact that
and like her hero name is like Cherry Bomb, and I'm like, her name is Cherry Bomb, and that's the best
you could
you could come up with. I'm like, that for me, that's just disrespectful. Like, because like they never give them cute. That's the thing I've noticed with like teenage Black girl characters. They are very against giving them like cute outfits and designs, because it's just another way to uplift the white female characters. Because we make them look more appealing to the audience. Because more people are going to be thinking about like characters like Stargirl or Cyclone than they are going to be thinking about characters that are just like this. Like, it literally looks like a trash can. It's just bad.
Right.
And that's another thing too. I also think they do it because it's another way of them not having to draw their hair.
Wow, I never thought of that, but that makes sense.
Because like if they're covered all the time, that means we don't have to put in the effort to like draw their hair. Like, think about characters like Steel. Steel's niece, Natasha Irons. She's always in that freaking metallic suit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't even see that they're Black. I mean, we know she's Black, but it's like we cover them so much where it's like, okay.
To be fair, we only know she's Black because we know who her uncle is.
Yeah, because it's like because like they show her like when she's not in like her suit and all that stuff. Like we like know that, but at the same time, it's like it feels almost nefarious to me where all the white like we can see all the white people, but like the Black characters are entirely covered. It feels weird to me.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to hide us. And so I think we tackled this a little bit earlier, but given all this that we have just talked about, what are some challenges you faced as a Black woman in this space, and how do you personally overcome them? You know what? That laugh, I feel like that laugh, I know exactly why you laughed. Because it's the reason I found you in the first place.
Yeah. I get all kinds of stuff anytime I speak. And I've gotten it from like almost every side you can think of. At this point, I had to kind of get used to it. Like, I've gotten the death threats, I've gotten the racial slurs, misogyny, all that good stuff. And there's really just nothing you can do about it, especially when you make yourself a public person on the internet.
Yeah.
But really, after a while, I had to just kind of learn how to be able to not ignore it, but
Turn it
I do have to be able to like set up things to protect myself, first and foremost.
mhm.
But also not let it get to me personally. Because I mean, I'm not gonna stop doing content because some dude like said this or that. That's not how that's gonna go. Um,
Right.
and really, I try not to even respond to them because a lot of them are fishing for reactions too. Uh, it's also why I don't really do stitches or anything like that because
Mhm.
I I've got nothing to say. Like, cause my thing is people who like will try to stitch to debate my points. Um, but I'm like, if you're not a black woman and we're speaking on black women's experiences, then there's no debate here. So there's no point in me talking to you. Uh,
Amen. You
so
said it.
like I try not to engage, and even if it's like a stupid comment or something, I still won't give them the satisfaction of a reaction. Uh, Most of the time, I just delete them. Uh, I'm not really doing all that, especially when all it does is create more issues, not only for me, but also for the people within my space. Like I said,
Mhm.
my number one goal is to make this a safe area for Black women to feel comfortable voicing how they feel. And I feel like, okay, I understand when you get to a certain amount of like following or people watching your videos, it can be hard to, what is the word? Filter out the
Uh,
comments, but I do feel
mhm.
like your comment section is a reflection of what you do and don't allow. Because my thing
Mhm.
is, if I go into a person's video and I see that they're allowing people to make all these like racist, misogynistic comments, I'm like, no, I see that as kind of a personal thing against you. Because why are you allowing those video? Why are you allowing these comments to persist? And why are you
Right.
making
Why
them feel
aren't you at least
comfortable to?
deleting a bulk of
Yeah,
them?
yeah.
I
So I'm
see
like,
that a
yeah,
lot.
no, me. I know a lot of people don't do this, but I do take the time to like clear all that out because I'm not gonna make people who want to see a specific kind of content feel uncomfortable when they come to my page. I want them to know that they can, exist here and not have to worry about any of that nonsense. Um, and that's another thing too. When you feed into it, more of them come,
Mhm.
and that's not what I'm about. That's it's very toxic. So
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, no, we're not. I'm not entertaining it. I'm not engaging with it. We're just gonna do our own thing here. And if I have to like maybe go private for a little while or just not respond to comments or something like that, or take time to just filter everything out, then I'll do that.
Look,
And
I
I'm
hate that you went through some of the stuff that you went through, but I am kind of glad for the one big thing that happened because it's the how I found your page in the first
mm,
place was
yeah.
that whole thing. So I am
Mm,
grateful for that, but hate that it happened. If that makes
yeah,
sense.
and I still get a few comments about that trickling in every now and again, so I just gotta like delete them. So, but
Right.
it really doesn't get to me. But it's like, like dang. But it is crazy, I will say, because it can, the races. I was expecting that. I
Right.
already knew that was gonna happen. Like I don't care about any of them. But I do think that it does suck a little worse when it's people within the community who are
Yeah.
bringing in that toxicity and that misogyny and just speaking down on you for any little reason. Like I think one of the things that really just makes me the most upset is that people automatically assume that I don't know what I'm talking about or that I don't actually care about this topic because I'm a woman. And
Yep.
they'll say like, "Oh well, most women aren't actually into these things; they just do it for guys." But I'm like,
Which literally is a lie, but go off, I guess.
"Oh no, I've been here since I was in elementary school."
Right. It's
Like, it's crazy to think about that some people like really just think were never into these spaces until like da da da. Like when they say like, "Oh well, girls weren't thinking about this or that until later."
like, no, we had to hide it more, even more than y'all did, because we were made fun of even worse than y'all were for it.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk about it unless we had that one good group of people we could talk about it with. Can you share a moment where you felt that your work had a tangible impact on the community?
Oh, definitely. Actually, university I went to in the UK. Someone messaged me recently. I graduated a few years ago, But someone messaged me recently, like I think it was like last month, and they were like, "Hey, I saw you on the wall." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they were like, "What?" And they showed me a picture, and someone, because I guess students were asked to like post like uh, people that they really liked for Black History Month in the hallways, and someone had posted me as their
Oh,
Black History Month hero, and I was like, "Oh wow."
that is so cool. You should be, because you do exactly what people should be doing, and that's highlighting Black content in media 365 days a year, give or
Yeah.
take for the times that you take your breaks, which are, given what you're doing, much needed, I'm sure. Um, and I'm happy to ask this because I was there for the concrete approved, so I'm really ready to hear more about this. What are your hopes and goals for the future of your content and its impact on your audience?
Well, I do. He hope to keep doing what I'm doing. Be able to reach wider audiences. Maybe get into like maybe longer form content. Because TikTok's been kind of funny. I
That's
have
so cool.
been placed under so many restrictions. It is crazy. Um, so I'm thinking about doing some other stuff as well.
Mhm.
But I'm also active on like Instagram and Twitter. I do my little infographics every now and again. Uh,
Mhm.
so thinking about that kind of stuff. But then I'm also kind of getting into my own writing and all that.
But I'm actually interested. I heard you say something about you were thinking about writing a story in the future.
Yeah, I have like a whole little thing. It's just like matter of like all of it coming together. Like I have most my little dialogues and all that fun stuff. I feel like character creation is the fun thing for me.
Yes, it is the fun part for sure.
Because I come up with a lot of stuff. Because usually I started off with like fan fiction, and then I worked my way up to kind of my own stuff. So then sometimes I use stuff that I use from like fanfics to be able to help me out with scripting things for my own independent content.
Yep. Honestly, I feel like that's the great way to do it.
Yeah.
Start with the fan stuff, and then the fan stuff you write inspires your original work, and I feel like it makes it just like that much better.
Hmm.
So, because I know that's kind of how we started. Like it was fan stuff and what if stuff, and then it was like, we can tell our own stories, and then we can
Hmm.
give that representation that is very much needed. So let's do it like that. And then so
That's a
that
lot of
stuff
people that
inspires
get hired at
other
DC started with fan fiction.
people. Right. And even people back on the anime side, people that are
Hmm.
now working on Dragon Ball started off with fan stuff, fan
Hmm.
animations, stuff like that. So like it's always a great starting point. And
Yeah.
I remember when I heard you say that, and I was like, I'm really excited for that. Actually, I want to see what you come out with.
Yeah.
Um,
And even now, I've also kind of gained the attention of a few people who work at DC. So that was kind of cool to see that they're actually like looking at what I'm saying.
Hopefully, they're listening to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I want to know what advice you would give other Black women creatives who want to use their, the question says art, but
Mhm.
their thoughts, their creativity, their platforms for activism or to speak out for social
Mhm.
change.
Well, first off, I would just say, just do you. Anything that you kind of feel, just, think it through and then just put it out there. Don't be afraid to speak because I know it's a lot of people are. The first thing is that they are scared to put themselves out there because the internet is a
Scary.
very terrifying place, and I get that. I get that entirely. Because some people even wait a while before they even show their face. Um, and I understand why because it can be brutal. Uh, but my thing is like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, um, and don't let what people say kind of break you down because their goal is to break you down. So they're just going to say anything that they think will hurt you, but that's not a reflection of you. It doesn't mean that your point was, like this or that. If they're not coming in with anything like constructive, it's safe to say that they're just being jerks. Uh, so yeah, try not to take. I mean, I know it's not an easy thing to do and not take things to heart. I know it. I know that firsthand.
Yeah.
Um, but you really have to just let it slide off and just keep doing what you're doing. Because if we back down every time they did all this stuff, we wouldn't be able to ever make content.
That's so true. And even then, still sometimes you're just like, maybe I just will stop this for a second.
Mhm.
Like, no, no, I had a purpose. I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah.
And also, I want to know if you can share a Black woman artist or activist or creator that inspires you and why.
Hmm. Just one?
You can name multiple. I don't think anyone's named one yet, actually.
Oh boy. Well, first, I would really say like people like Toni Morrison, Octavia Butler, and even now like N.K. Jemisin. I find their work just so very
Amazing.
interesting because like as not only a history buff, but
Mm,
also as like someone who's into like sci-fi and fantasy,
yes.
um, and like also like concepts of womanism, and even just making Black women like that center focus of the story. That's where I really try to get into it, thinking more about us, but not in a way where it's like, how do I word this? Hmm. Like writing where it's like we just exist,
Mm,
and it's not like about a statement or anything. It's just we just exist the way
right.
any other character would get to
It exists.
exist. But we get more of an exploration of our emotions. We get proper humanization. We get to be the one to go on this kind of
Right.
journey, no matter what kind of journey it is. But we get to go on a journey. Uh, that really means a lot to me, and that's kind of like what I use as my kind of goal here and the kind of stuff that I personally want to do. So I love being able to see that, and even like the work that Stephanie Williams is doing. uh
Yeah.
Great, I love it. She did a lot of great work with Nubia. She's been
Mhm.
doing a lot of great work with both DC and Marvel. I love her fan comic Living Heroes.
I still haven't gotten a chance to check it out, but I want
You
to.
definitely should. Because she was kind of like my mom, because my mom back in the day, she thought She-Hulk was a Black woman because of the way she was in the cartoon that came out at the time.
Mhm.
So that's why she's one of the characters on Living Heroes. Um, but I think it just really means a lot to see more Black women becoming more prominent in these spaces as
Yeah.
writers. And we're also seeing a lot of new, really cool artists like Aletha Martinez coming in, uh, even Karen Darbo, a lot of great work coming in. And it makes me a lot more hopeful. And
Yeah.
I understand like there's still some issues with treatment and actually getting your foot in the door, but it is nice to see more getting work and more being able to create their own stories.
Yeah. And if all else fails, and y'all just need to do it independent, we're here to support it
Yeah.
then too. Okay? Make it
Indie
huge.
especially. We love seeing indie.
Right. I'm just like, look, if one day Marvel and DC decides that they want to boot y'all, then y'all need to start writing your own stuff, and we're here for
Mhm.
it. We will be here. I would buy it in
Most
a
deaf.
heartbeat as long as I got some money. I'm gonna pick it up. I promise you I will. But yeah, it
We love
is it's
it.
really good to see. It is so good to see. Now we get to move on to our women's history fact of the day. Alice Dunning, blah blah. Alice Dunnigan made history in 1947 as the first Black woman correspondent to cover the White House. And I want to ask our resident historian, in my eyes, if you have anything to add to that at all.
I just feel like there's so many Black women in history and like they're all just like really cool. But I will maybe add one, and that was Phyllis Wheatley. Maybe a name you're probably familiar with. Phyllis
Yeah.
Wheatley is actually one of the few Black Enlightenment writers, because people always get into like the Enlightenment and philosophy and uh,
Yeah.
the writing at the time, but Phyllis Wheatley was kind of an outlier here, and I like to think about her a lot because you know she was so talented, and because originally she started off with spoken poetry,
Mhm.
and then eventually because at this time like she was an enslaved girl, and her masters were even like her masters were like, actually wait. And so eventually, like, she does get the ability to learn how to write. And her work becomes so good that her masters like literally ask her to write to King Louis, to ask him about, maybe uh, showing some mercy towards the United States. Because remember, we're about to get into the Revolutionary War, and in one of her major poems, she is essentially not only kind of making this plea here, but she's also kind of connecting how America feels about Britain to the way African Americans feel about America, where she's saying, America use these terms like tyranny and slavery when they're talking about their being colonized by Britain, but they're like, how do they think that we feel? Because it's like, if you feel that you're a slave and I'm a slave, then shouldn't we both have freedom? And she's really bringing in like these really good points, and she is just so clever. She's so smart. She uses a lot of ethos and a lot of connections to religion that she's using as well. That's really supposed to be evoking passion from the people around her. And one thing about her life that just really sticks out to me is that she was actually nominated for an award for her writing in Britain. So she actually goes to Britain. Um, but the thing was, her writing was so good that the Europeans there accused her of plagiarism, and they tried to say there is no way that this, black girl could write something like this. And they actually made her prove that she could write, because they were like, basically, she shows up and they're like, write something right now. So she had to like literally pull up something on the spot. And of course, she wins.
Right.
Like she was just able to do it. And they're like, oh. And so eventually she actually does win this award, but even at her own award ceremony, she sat alone all the way in the back. They put her in the back and no one would sit next to her.
Wow.
So it's really interesting to think about.
And the Europeans think racism is only in America.
Oh no. It's
True, guys. Wow.
no,
Okay.
it really runs deep everywhere.
These writings, but I did not know that. And see, there you guys go. You guys get some awesome guests that are dropping some really cool facts, y'all, like every week, and it's so cool to be here and hear them. And before I forget, like I've done for most of the episodes, you go ahead and give everybody your socials. So they can know where to go and get information.
All right, so you guys know my handle is the Mightyz0 on Instagram and TikTok, and you can also find me on Twitter at the Mightyz2, and that's out for me.
All right, and of course, you guys know I'm Tashi. You can find me at midnightcomics.org, and from there you can find all the Midnight Comics socials, or you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at official_Tashi J. That's TOSHIJ. You can find me on Facebook and YouTube at Tashi J89. And that has been today's episode of Melanin Minds. And always remember that a small spark can create a huge flame. So keep inspiring people. And that's it. Night.